Thinking about moving to Charlotte, North Carolina? Don't do it until you hear this, because some of the most common misconceptions about the city can cost you a lot of money and a lot of time. I've worked with a lot of people who've relocated here, and what's wild is they do all the right research but still end up getting blindsided by some things. So we're going to talk about the top things that people get wrong about living in Charlotte. Let's jump in. A big surprise for a lot of people is that Charlotte doesn't really match that traditional Southern image that you might have in your head. Yes, we are in the South geographically, but Charlotte is going to be a lot more modern, and we're growing at a very fast pace. Since the 90s, our population has doubled. We have 157 people a day moving here. That means the majority of the people who live here aren't actually from Charlotte. In fact, people that are born and raised here are often called unicorns, which I don't know if they love that nickname, but it is just so rare to meet them. And it's even more rare to meet someone whose family have been here for generations. So all of that growth has really shaped Charlotte more into a city of transplants than one that has a deep-rooted Southern identity. People from all over the country move here, and they bring their culture and their perspectives with them. And you can see that influence everywhere, from the food scene to the new businesses and the energy. And even the look of our city doesn't really scream Southern. A lot of cities in the South are defined by their historical architecture. Where they prioritize preservation, we've really leaned into reinvention. Our skyline is constantly changing, and beyond that, most of our neighborhoods didn't even exist 20 to 30 years ago. And even our older homes, the majority of them were built in the 50s and 60s. A lot of them are actually getting demoed and rebuilt with new ones. So that combined with glass high-rises uptown, modern commercial buildings, the city feels very fresh and open and evolving. And don't get me wrong, there are still Southern nuances. If you order tea, it will be sweet. Someone's always having a barbecue, and people love Bojangles. And the one thing that really has stuck around is the Southern hospitality. And it's one of the best parts about living here. And when I first moved here, it kind of caught me off guard because people are so warm and open. I mean, beyond people just, waving and saying hi to you as you walk down the street, you'll be at a brewery and the person next to you just strikes up a conversation. People are just a lot more open here than other cities that I've lived in. I don't know if it's because so many people are transplants, but it really does make it feel like home pretty quick. One of the biggest mistakes people make when moving to Charlotte, and probably one of the most important ones, is not learning the different neighborhoods and areas. And I know this because I myself made this mistake years and years ago when I first moved here, and I see people make this mistake all of the time. It usually goes like this. You find a home on Zillow, book a flight to Charlotte just to get there and realize that you hate the neighborhood. That's why you really do have to work backwards. Before you even find a house, figure out where you want to live. Ask yourself, do I need to be close to work? Do I want shopping and restaurants nearby? Am I looking for neighborhood amenities or new construction? These are the questions that I walk my clients through to really figure out where is going to fit their lifestyle. Because let's be honest, it doesn't matter how beautiful a home is if you don't want to go outside of it. Charlotte isn't just one uniform city. We have hundreds and hundreds of different neighborhoods and tons of suburban towns that surround our city, and all of them are going to have different vibes and different energies. So if you're researching online, this can get a bit overwhelming. And what's really tricky is if you Google the best neighborhoods in Charlotte, you're going to see the same ones pop up over and over and over again. There are a lot of neighborhoods that just do not get the recognition they should. And don't get me wrong, online research is a great starting point. There are a ton of videos online and on this channel about different neighborhoods and areas, and there are also several websites that I can recommend to help, but at some point you really just need to get here and actually feel the city and see it for yourself. So if you're planning to buy, I have 2 tips for you. So the first tip is before you even book your flight, reach out. Here's all my information. It's also down below in the description. Schedule time to chat, and we can really narrow down what areas are going to make the most sense for you. And tip 2 is when you come to visit, give yourself at least 1 buffer day before your house tours. Spend that time driving around different neighborhoods, looking at different houses, and make sure that you actually like that area. Because if you don't, just give me a call and then we pivot. Honestly, about 90% of the time that I have clients do this, we end up scrapping a handful of their showings and replacing them with better options. It saves you a whole lot of time and a whole lot of energy. Next up, a lot of people want to move to Charlotte for our affordable cost of living. But funny enough, this does end up being a bit of a misconception. So when people hear North Carolina, they automatically assume cheap. And in a lot of ways, this is true, even when it comes to a major city like Charlotte. When you compare our cost of living to other major metros, we do come out ahead. The average cost of living here is 2.5% above the national average. When you compare us to major cities like New York, LA, or DC, they're 45 to 70% higher. And even when you compare us to smaller cities like Denver and Austin and Phoenix, we are still gonna come out ahead. Those markets run 13 to 28% above the national average. So yes, by the stats, Charlotte is gonna be more affordable. But here's the catch. That doesn't always mean your money will stretch you farther, especially when it comes to housing. Everyone knows that old real estate adage, location, location, location. But here in Charlotte, that almost applies to a micro level. Our home prices might look low compared to other major cities, but that doesn't mean a $600,000 home will be a mansion on the lake. And that same budget might get you a beautiful turnkey ready home, or it could buy you a smaller house that needs updates. What you're really paying for is the location, the schools, and the lifestyle. So here, affordable doesn't necessarily mean dirt cheap. It just means that you're getting more value compared to other major cities. Another huge mistake that I see people make is not understanding how our public school system works. And this applies not just to people who have kids, but also to people who are planning to have kids. So basically, our public school assignments aren't always as straightforward as they might seem. And this applies not just to the city of Charlotte, but also our surrounding counties. So you need to familiarize yourself with enrollment freezes and school reassignments. An enrollment freeze is when a school has temporarily stopped accepting new students. And this happens in some of our faster growing areas when a school hits capacity. So when it does happen, any new student will be sent to a school nearby. So you could buy in what you feel like is your dream school zone, only to go to enrollment and find out that your child is actually being sent to a different school. And on top of that, you also have school reassignment. This is when a district redraws the boundaries that determine which homes are assigned to which school. And this typically happens when a school is overcrowded or a new school opens up. So what this means is that you could buy a house today, and in the next year or so, that house could be zoned for a completely different school. And this is a conversation that I have with young families all of the time. They want to buy a house because it's zoned for a specific school, but little Timmy's only 2 years old, so there's no guarantee that he will actually go to that school when it's time for kindergarten. And this can be frustrating, but unfortunately it is part of what comes with living in a fast-growing city. But it's not the end of the world. You're just gonna have to do a bit more research, and I actually have a couple of tips for you. So call the school board directly. They can't predict the future, but they usually do have insights about upcoming changes. You can also use the county's website. You just type in the address and see if a school has an enrollment freeze or if it's gonna be reassigned next year. And most importantly, double check this before going under contract for a house. If schools are important to you, this is a critical step. Something that seems to be a big surprise for people when they move here is how much weather can shape your daily life. One thing people always say when they first visit is how green we are. We have a bunch of really big old trees and beautiful foliage. It really adds to the city's charm. But with all that beauty is going to come pollen. Every spring, it covers everything. It covers the patio, your cars, your dog will even be covered with pollen. It is that intense. And if you've never had allergies before, Charlotte will likely change that. The city consistently ranks high for seasonal allergies. A lot of locals will take antihistamines before the season even begins. And on days when it's really bad, the weather apps will actually give you pollen advisories where they tell you to limit your time outside. Now, of course, this doesn't affect everyone, but if you are prone to allergies, this is something to really be prepared for. And then you have the humidity. So if you're coming from a drier climate, summers are going to feel really heavy and really sticky. Our hottest months are June through August, and when the humidity kicks in, you will absolutely feel it. Your hair is going to get frizzier, your energy bill is going to go up, and you're really going to learn to limit your time outdoors when it comes to afternoon activities. So walking your dog, going on a run, even yard work is probably going to be done early in the morning or later in the evening. And because we are a subtropical climate, we are going to get a good bit of summer rain. Now, our humidity and rain isn't as bad as it is in, say, Florida or Texas, but it is one of the really big cons that people realize whenever they move here. Now, that said, we do experience all 4 seasons with a pretty mild winter. Throughout the entire year, our annual high average is about 72 degrees, and the annual low is around 51 degrees. So yes, we do have a couple of months that feel like literal hell on earth, but for a lot of people, it's worth the trade-off since the rest of the year is just so nice. And if you want to go deeper about living in Charlotte, check out this video here. I think it will help.